Hi all, my name is Malika and today we are having Emmanuel Young. Emmanuel is more than 9 years in the crypto space. He helps crypto projects with advisory and marketing, and he is an angel investor himself. Emmanuel, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
My first question is, how did you first become interested in crypto?
Well, actually, it's an interesting story. So I was in class with a friend actually, and he's a smart guy, a whiz, a veritable whiz. He's actually doing a PhD at the moment. But he just mentioned Bitcoin, and I was at the time sort of very entrepreneurial. So I was doing all sorts of stuff, buying antiques, selling antiques, all of that sort of stuff. And I decided, okay, well, this is interesting. Had a look for 4 months at sort of Bitcoin and Litecoin. I noticed there was a discrepancy in the amount that are being sold for around the world, especially in the UK, because we didn't have access to exchanges back then. And so I became a peer-to-peer broker. So I bought abroad, sold here for a higher price, and I did that for about 3.5 years. Now, over that time, I really did it for the entrepreneurial journey, the business, all of that. But I learned so much about it. I learned how to use exchange, how to use a wallet, etc. And after a while, a few of my clients were inviting me to conferences around the world. And that's when I started to understand what decentralization meant. And I really got into the technology. So in the past few years, I've been investing in projects, in crypto assets, and also in the marketing space, because I realized that a lot of the projects I was invested in didn't know how to speak to their own customers. So, it was important for me to learn how to market cryptocurrencies and projects to the outside world. And then now I advise projects on that, and I continue to invest as well.
Nice. It's a really interesting story. What are the benefits of Web3 technology compared to traditional web technology?
Well, I guess the first thing you have to do to answer that question is really define what Web3 technology is. So the idea of Web3 technology came around I think it was a couple years ago, when it was Gavin Wood, the founder of Polkadot and a co-founder in Ethereum. He sort of said the idea of Web3 as a decentralized internet. So that's sort of like an internet that isn't hosted by single servers owned by Google or Microsoft or Amazon Web Services, but is run on a decentralized network of computers. So I think what the idea of that is very similar to a blockchain technology. Obviously, blockchain is a distributed network that hosts a financial ledger, which is Bitcoin. Well, Bitcoin's blockchain does at least. And so I guess the benefits of that sort of setup are very, very clear, really. You have, you don't have a single party that is in control of the network. So there's resilience. If they go out of business, the network doesn't go down. And you have ownership for content creators as well. So you could have a setup whereby to access the network, you have a wallet like you have with Bitcoin, and each piece of content that's put onto the network is still owned by the creator, so they can charge fees every time someone accesses it. And they're sort of the main benefits. And then I guess the only other benefit is, well, it's 50-50 whether it's a benefit or not. Censorship. So obviously in a decentralized network, no one can censor what you put onto the network. So that can come as a great benefit, but obviously the internet is also a very dark place, and sometimes things need to be policed a bit. So yeah, that would be my answer to that question, I suppose.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a great answer. And what excites you more about Web3?
Than Web2 technology, than traditional technology?
Yeah, in general, in maybe the future of Web3 technology.
Right. Yeah. So that's interesting. So for me, the future of Web3 technology is all about giving people back their autonomy in terms of, in a financial sense. So they have custody over their own money, and in a data sense. So anything they do online, their activities, they can control and monetize themselves. So for me, that's a really, really exciting future for the use of Web3 technology. But I think right now, like in the medium to long term or short to medium term, it's actually seeing people who are not in Web3 redeploy their skills that they spent decades building outside into Web3 and being rewarded so much more than they are normally. So that for me is perfect. Like that's why I want to help people to come into this space and help projects grow.
Totally. Yeah. And what are the key challenges you faced when working with Web3 projects as advisor?
Right. Yeah. So there's a lot of challenges. I thought about this question beforehand, and I tried to pick up three. Obviously, we're a new industry, so there's going to be inefficiencies everywhere. But I find like the biggest challenges you face is obviously money. Now that might seem a bit counterintuitive because we see all these stories of Bored Apes, making $1 million off a JPEG, and people who spent $10 on Bitcoin 10 years ago are now billionaires essentially. So you see a lot of those stories in the crypto media, but when it comes to the ground and things happening on the ground, there's so many more actors than there are people willing to spend money. So projects actually suffer from a lack of funding. The average runway for a project in crypto is about 8 months. So that's hard to attract labor. It's hard to keep a clear direction, all of that. So I think the biggest is money. The second is the skills. So like I said earlier, I find it fascinating when people come in and redeploy their skills. So they might have accounting skills, HR skills, all of those types of skills in crypto, but it's still a new space, isn't it? So like we're the going rate for a blockchain dev is about $150,000 minimum. That's ridiculous. You can get a graduate in a IBM or Microsoft at about £30,000 to £40,000, which is about $50,000. So it's almost triple the amount. So that just shows there's not enough skills in the tech space. And then everywhere else as well. So marketing, there aren't enough skills to be able to understand that community is the basis of marketing here. So that is a whole new thing. So everyone's learning together. I'm still learning how to communicate that to people who are used to just going to a shop, buying something and going home. But here it's about engaging community. And then the final thing, which I think relates to two, and it's because this space is so fast paced, there's a lack of organization. So every organization in this space is, I don't know if you found this, I don't know if other people listening have found this as well, but it is a startup culture. So it's all a flat network. The founders are all sort of, a bit hippie and a bit, they are intelligent and they're directive and all of that, but there isn't often sort of, because everything changes so quickly, when you set a direction, you have to change that direction too, and that filters down to everybody else who are just there to do a job. So money, skills, and organization, they're the biggest issues in this space, I think.
Thank you, Emmanuel. And speaking of marketing, what strategies have you found to be effective in raising awareness and adoption of crypto?
That's a good question. That's my area. So there are two main ways in this space that are the most effective, I think. And I think influencer marketing is one of them, and community building is the other, focus on community. Influencer marketing is really, really useful in this space simply because it's a new space. So people rely on authority figures to give them a gateway into the space, to tell them what to do, to tell them how to do something, and to feel, a connection with somebody. So when influencers say, buy this coin or, do this thing or whatever, people tend to do it. If you want to grow a project, partner with some influencers, either pay them or get them as ambassadors, pitch to them, all of that, and they can rapidly increase your growth to a relevant audience very quickly. The second part of that is once you've got them in, now you need to keep people there. So obviously customer attention, and community is the best way here. Keeping a highly, highly engaged community. Make sure your content plan is on point. Make sure you've got lots of memes going out all the time. You've got lots of updates. Your roadmap is public, all of that, just to provide content to keep your community there. And communities offer more than just customers as well. They can offer you like a chance to do your research and development and get feedback instantly. They can offer you friendships. You're going to make loads of friends around the world. You're going to have places to stay. You're going to have people to go and see. Like it's beautiful. So those are the two main ways: influencer marketing and community building.
Yeah, totally agree. And what do you think? What are some innovative or creative marketing techniques you've seen or used in the crypto industry?
Yeah, so this is interesting. So NFT London and NFT New York. NFT London was the first one last year, and New York has been going for a couple of years now. And I'm always amazed by the stunts that I see there. So at NFT London, there was a separate event run by NFT UK, and what they did, they hired this. There was a building that was hired called Outernet, which is in London. It's near Tottenham Court Road, so it's in the centre of London. And the whole sort of room, and it's a massive outside place full of screens and everything, and just had artworks going on it. That's amazing. So doing big stunts like that during a good event that everyone's covering, I think is so good. Personally, I'm a massive fan of cats. So one of the things that I've got on my mind, I'm not giving too much. I hope I'm not giving too much away here for my team and everything. But one of the things I've got on my mind is just to get at NFT London or NFT, or to get a pen of cats and just have people come up. You can stroke them, you can do everything you want with them, whatever. But the idea is to get them into interacting with you, so then you can do the stuff about, join this community. What are you doing? How can we help you, etc. So yeah, things that are just creative and you wouldn't think about normally. Yeah, they're the best types that I've seen so far.
Yeah. That's interesting. I will Google it later.
Yeah, definitely. Alternet.
How do you stay updated on the latest trends and best practices in crypto marketing?
Well, this is interesting. So I follow Twitter is a really good space for crypto. Obviously, the whole industry is basically on Twitter. Now, a lot of people say Twitter is toxic. I've never found social media toxic at all, and it's simply because I just use it the way I want to use it, not the way other people want me to use it and want me to engage with them. So one of my things on Twitter is a list, and I've got loads. I follow loads of marketers. There's some really good ones out there who are always posting about the latest marketing technique or demonstrating the latest marketing technique. So when you see a good project that has gone from 0 followers to 10,000 engaged followers in less than a month, you sit there, you study them, and you see exactly every post they've done, every reply they had, and you break it down, and you can sort of reassembly that for something else. And then the other way is very simple: talking to people. So I've been in this space a long while. I know a lot of agencies. I know a lot of the founders of agencies. I go to conferences all the time. Just sit around the table and discuss how you launched your latest client's project, how you launch your own project, what are the best things you could do, and ask questions. People in this space love being talked to and love being seen as a marks of authority. So if you ask someone a question, they'll go on forever about their latest discovery. So yeah, those are the main ways that I keep up to date with the marketing techniques.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, agree. And in general, what role do social media platforms play in the cryptocurrency marketing efforts?
Well, huge, obviously. So Twitter is, like I said, everyone's on Twitter. Twitter is the way you update your community, basically, on everything that's going on. Twitter is massively important. And obviously, Elon Musk is a big fan of crypto. The other day, the icon for better or for worse became Dogecoin, and all this sort of stuff. So Twitter is important, but then also it's important to have like a conversational platform as well. So Telegram and Discord, where people can come in and they feel like they can have a conversation with each other. So having those types of things as well. Exploring other social media platforms, the more niche ones, like the writing platforms, like Medium is obviously the biggest mainstream one, but you have Mirror XYZ, you have Sigil on the Bitcoin blockchain on Stacks. These are all sort of blogging platforms that are really useful as well, and they're coming up, especially they're being taken up by big bloggers and big writers in crypto, but hopefully crypto media also takes them up and elevates them a bit, because a lot of what lacks in this space is a lot of deep and do your own research. So a lot of people will be on Twitter, they'll see a tweet and they'll see five sentences and scroll past, or one sentence and scroll past. But you really need to educate people by providing easily accessible long form content. So these blogging platforms, I think, are the next big thing in crypto, for social media anyway.
Yeah, and what would you say about concerns about the potential for marketing crypto to attract vulnerable individuals or encourage risky investment behavior?
Yes, well, I mean, this unfortunately, this just does happen, and it's really a mark of the fact that it's a young industry, and you have these very powerful authorities, like I said about influencer marketing, that are there that people just go to and rely on. So, for instance, it's so unfortunate and probably illegal that a lot of these celebrities, I won't name them just because I don't want to get into legal trouble, but a lot of celebrities were just paid to market NFTs and NFT projects that just had a lot of money to spend, and a lot of their fans came in and bought it all. Now, whether they're buying the art or they're buying it for an investment should be their own decision, but we know what the project wanted. The project wanted money, and so did the celebrity pushing it. That's all they wanted. So it's obviously a massive, massive risk. The way it's solved is, unfortunately, not by everyone just becoming, so benevolent, but it's solved by regulation. You have the in the UK, at least, we have the Advertising Standards Agency. So they regulate what can go on TV, what can go on the radio, what can go on the internet to some extent, and what can go in physical world, billboards, etc. Like, you cannot say this new medicine will cure AIDS or cancer, for example. You can't do that. But you can say in crypto, this blockchain is going to change the world, when most of them really won't. Or this coin is going to lead to your financial independence, when that's not at all true in most cases, or in all cases. I shouldn't say most cases. So we need a body like the Advertising Standards Agency, maybe set up by government. Maybe government bodies have a Bitcoin or crypto wing, or maybe set up by a consortium of the media outlets, like the CoinDesk, like the Cointelegraph, that regulate their own advertising and lead by example.
Yeah. And what measures do you take normally to ensure that you do not make false promises to potential users or investors?
Yeah, so this is a good one that I do sort of advise on the risks of doing that. So it's difficult. Like I said, going back to our conversation about the changing environment, is rapid pace. So I think it's the best case is to publish your roadmap. Publish your roadmap just to be transparent and to ensure that the community sort of has that respect for you. But when you check, inevitably that roadmap is going to change because the environment changes. When you do change stuff, you have to be fully honest with your community, and that's really the only way you can be. Try and anticipate changes that could happen that you can control. The ones that you can't control, you have to manage the risk at the time and just be transparent. So like I said before about skills being redeployed into this space, this is what PR specialists that have been 20, 30 years in mainstream industry will tell you. But because we're such a new industry and they're not in it yet, people don't sort of talk about communications risks, for example. It's quite geeky, but these are the things that we need to consider. And I would say being honest is the main one.
Yeah. And what would you say about the potential for marketing cryptocurrencies to exploit people's fear of missing out and encourage them to make impulsive investments?
Okay, well, I'll separate the two. So obviously you don't want to encourage people to make impulsive investments. Like, that's the one thing. I don't lead any marketing strategy that tells people you need to invest in something, because you can't do that. That's giving financial advice, and in most countries it's regulated, so you can't do it anyway. And any respectable platform that has your marketing campaign will edit anything saying invest in this out. So that's one thing. I think mostly that's already taken care of, but then it comes to the individuals and the influencers who need to just be regulated, and they need to face consequences if they encourage someone to invest. However, the feeling of missing out, I think, is a valid marketing technique. So you want to create that in order to get people into your community, and then your community can keep them there, and you can provide them with stuff and all of that. You don't want to provide a false sense of you're missing out on something that never comes when you get into the community. That's just dishonesty. But I do think the FOMO and all of that stuff is valid. So I wouldn't say let's ban FOMO, because that's something you use as a marketing consultant or an advisor or a CMO or whatever to achieve your aims.
What would you say? What are some common misconceptions about crypto in general?
Misconceptions. Well, first misconception is everything's Bitcoin. It's not. So that's misconception from people outside. So often I do something called the neighbor test or the Uber driver test, but I think neighbor is more relatable to everyone. And it's if I can't explain something, or if my neighbor doesn't understand something about crypto, then I need to change the way I'm speaking about it in order to make it make sense, because it does make sense. So So the main misconception is Bitcoin is the only one. I think that's being abated a bit. Like, people know about Ethereum now at the most, and they know a bit about NFTs as well, especially about Bored Apes. But everything isn't Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Bored Apes. There's a lot more involved there. And I think within the industry, the biggest one used to be that if you put something on the blockchain, it's going to become amazingly secure, it's immutable, it will last forever. It's just this magic silver bullet that will end your notary requirements. That I'm hoping that has changed now. I think it has changed for the people that are in my circle. But blockchain isn't the only decentralized ledger. And it's not the only. It's only a type of database that you need in financial services, for example, where you need things to be authenticated and unchangeable. But you have other decentralized ledgers like Tangle by IOTA, for example, which is a directed acyclical graph, and that's great for mass scalability and the Internet of Things, where machines are talking to each other. You also want decentralized ledgers that are mutable, because say for provenance, like back in the day, a lot of people were saying, okay, well, if we say that this factory has made is following all the manufacturing regulations in its local area, there's no child labor, etc., 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 and then we say that, and then we record and put every step until it gets into our shops on a blockchain, that'll be fine. That's perfect, like it's registered there. But what if the company was lying? You can't change it. And so you need to be able to change some stuff. So having mutable blockchains is also good. So I think those are the two main ones. That everything's Bitcoin, everything's Ethereum, everything's Bored Apes, and within everything's Bitcoin, which it is not. Oh, sorry, everything's immutable. Bitcoin's immutable, which is not.
Yeah, thank you. What advice would you have for someone who is new to the world of crypto?
So the advice is, I guess, it's very clear. In terms of trading and investing, only invest what you're willing to lose, and don't do any more than that. Don't get caught up in reading technical analysis. It's mostly all nonsense. Don't get caught up in investing in tokens. Again, also nonsense for the most part. And also, use influencers as an indicator and to raise your suspicions or raise your curiosity about something, but then literally go and do your own research. Go straight to the project's website, read through their docs, seek out expert advice that preferably isn't online and in the industry as well. And also use crypto media properly. So use the CoinDesk, use the CoinTab, use the high-level crypto media that have verifiable journalists and journalist integrity and editorial policies and all of that to get your news. And that's the main thing. Stay safe and hopefully stay active.
Yeah, thank you. And what do you think is the biggest risk facing the Web3 ecosystem in the next few years?
I think the biggest risk is internal risk. So we have the might of, I won't name the exchange, but you everyone listening and probably yourself can probably tell which exchange this is. The biggest exchange in the world has such a hold over the cryptocurrency market on an economic level. So if that exchange went down, which, by the way, every big exchange in history has gone down apart from this one, so it's not guaranteed that it will stay. If that exchange goes down, what will happen is the cryptocurrency market will crash, and that will definitely knock confidence in the public's perception of our industry. Every time Bitcoin goes to a certain price level or falls to a certain price level, BBC is on it. Whenever Bitcoin has an amazing development, like a halving or a new software update, whatever, Bitcoin, the BBC never reports it. So we need to be careful about people holding too much power, especially particular exchanges, in this space without any accountability. I think that's one of the biggest risks. I think the other big risk, but I also think it could be a reward, is regulation coming from government bodies, especially from the US Congress and especially from the European Union. The US and Europe are the biggest growth areas, or the biggest demographic areas in crypto right now. The US Congress is notoriously slow, and dare I say, a lot of the committees are pretty much idiots. They're uneducated on crypto, and they ask. For instance, they asked Mark Zuckerberg, or they asked the chief executive of Apple, how do I turn off the privacy settings on my Android phone? Like, how are they supposed to? But anyway, the point that they're regulating, I think it's a risk that those types of people, the people that don't know their Androids from their iOSs, will not know Bitcoin from Ethereum, or Ethereum from Ripple, or et cetera, et cetera. And so it might be bad legislation that's actually passed. But again, like I said, with the Advertising Standards Agency, we do need some regulation to regulate some of the bad actors in crypto. So hopefully now I'm being biased because I live in the UK. The UK, our legislative body and our regulators and the European unions, I think, are far more intelligent, let's say, than people across the pond. So hopefully the regulation that comes out of our area will be copied and help to foster a good development environment and a good participation environment for people within the space and people looking to get into the space.
Yeah, thank you. And could you please name these big players who would keep the monopoly in the space?
Well, I mean, I could definitely name them. I don't want to be sued for defamation. So let's just say the biggest exchange in the world. Everybody knows who that is, and the man behind that big exchange as well. I've given away his gender there. He's definitely a man. Behind that space, he's got a really, really influential voice in the space. That being said, though, both the exchange and the man seem to be, at least publicly, saying, okay, we need to be more transparent. We want to engage with regulators. We want to engage with users. So those two, that entity and that person, I think are the biggest ones. And then I guess there are other ones as well. Like you have big personalities in business, especially in the US, that one of them owns, and the audience can go and do their own research on who this might be, but one of them owns over 130,000, nearly 140,000 Bitcoin, not dollars worth of Bitcoin. So that's, I don't know how many billions that is, but they have an economic influence over the market. Luckily, these people seem to be, Bitcoin maxis and crypto maxis, so their investments and have been verified to be long term. But it's very, very, very a big risk that single individuals or entities have such economic power in the space. And like I said before, the cryptocurrency market, despite all the building that's going on, the cryptocurrency market, so that is the buying and selling of all cryptocurrencies, the price is what dictates what people perceive of our market. It's when there's a bull run, when Bitcoin's at 60K or 100K, hopefully next time, that's what people outside see as success. When it falls, they see it as a failure. So we have to be careful about how we manage the crypto economy and the crypto market as well.
Yeah, totally. And what would you suggest to do to the small platforms which are not that popular and people just don't trust them because they might think that they are scammers because they are not popular, and that's why they go to these like big players?
Yeah, well, if we're talking about small projects who want to become popular and do all of that stuff, I would say to you, okay, well that's a strategy you can deploy. You can quickly buy followers, you can buy influence, you can go through influencers who will charge you X amount just to have a post and all of that. But I would actually say focus on your community. Focus on, you might have a community of 10,000 rather than 100,000 or 1 million. But if you have 10,000 active, engaged community members who can spend $50 a month, you're gonna make millions every single year in revenue. a company with a million followers or a million whatever community members who isn't engaging them at all, they're gonna lose that million community members very, very quickly. So focus on your community. If you do want to grow, be cautious of how you grow, because the people that genuinely just are fleeting and come via paid promotion don't stay and don't contribute to your development anyway.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so the community is the most important thing.
Yes, 100%.
And as an investor, could you please name top 3 criteria for the project you would invest in?
So I guess the top one is the people. The people need experience, both in the field that they're going into. So whether that be healthcare, whether that be supply chains, whether that be anything to do with data structures, they need experience in those industries. And then there needs to be a solid technical background. You need to have people that don't test in production, but test in private and then release good quality products and services to the public that are security tested. So the people is the first one. The second is the community. So they need to have a plan. If they don't have a community already, they need to have a plan to build that community. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for them focusing on the quality of the community over everything but themselves and the project itself. So that's the second thing. And the third thing, they need to be solving a real problem. Blockchain technology isn't applicable to every single problem. You don't need it for everything. If you don't need a blockchain to do paintings unless you're an artist. But you don't need a blockchain for gardening. You don't need a blockchain for provenance necessarily. You don't need all of that. You need to solve a real problem with the technology that you're trying to build. So those are the 3 things: the people, the community, and solving a real problem.
Yeah, thank you. And the last question is, do you recommend buying Bitcoin now?
I'll say this, I'll preface this with saying I am not giving anybody financial advice. However, when it comes to making investment decisions, if you have decided that an industry or a particular project or a particular company or a particular asset, Bitcoin, is going to be the future, there's no better time to invest than now.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel. I really had a great time chatting with you. It was very interesting for me personally to listen to your opinion.
Perfect. Well, stay in touch.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Have a great evening.
Likewise. Bye-bye.
Bye.